welcome to my desk. Today I'm going to be drawing Spiderman. Okay. So obviously Spider-Man as a super villain, but in some of the comics, he is actually like a sort of like an anti-hero character. And in one storyline, he actually switches bodies with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man dies in his body. And so Doc Ock's like essence becomes the new Spider-Man for a while, with like I hope you like this one. Let me know in the comments what your favorite version of Spider-Man is. And I will see you in the next one.